The service dog remained stationed outside his former handler's room, stubbornly resisting attempts by staff to relocate him. "He doesn't even recognize you," one nurse observed. "He's too far gone." Despite this, the dog persisted. Then, one morning, he calmly positioned himself before the veteran, and suddenly, deeply buried, traumatic memories resurfaced. What actions did the dog take, and what did the veteran ultimately recall? Please subscribe and leave a comment indicating your location. Let's begin. The VA psychiatric facility's fluorescent lights created stark shadows as Sergeant Thomas Grady gazed blankly out the window. 6 months had elapsed since his transfer from Walter Reed, but time felt insignificant within the mental fog he experienced. The sound of rain on the window reflected the scattered recollections that briefly appeared, then vanished before he could hold onto them. "Good morning, Sergeant Grady," a voice said from the entrance. Dr. Elaine Monroe stood there with his file, her demeanor carefully empathetic. "How are you feeling today?" Thomas didn't respond. "The same as yesterday, Doc." His voice held the strained quality of a man who had recently been giving commands above the sound of weapons fire. The mark along his jawline was just an outward sign of the IED's impact. The real harm was hidden beneath his skull, where memories had been broken like glass. "Your latest scans show continued physical healing," Dr. Monroe began, settling into a chair. "Spare me the medical details," Thomas interrupted. 6 months of tests, and all of you can tell me is that I should remember. But I don't." These sudden shifts from clarity to disorientation had become a defining feature of his condition. He shifted abruptly, first displaying the bearing of a soldier, then becoming agitated, seemingly overtaken by disjointed memories without explanation. "You served as a sergeant in the 5th Special Forces. 3 tours in Afghanistan, injured 6 months ago in Kandahar," she pointed out, reiterating their established routine. "So you keep telling me," Thomas responded, a hint of frustration in his voice. "But it's just words. I don't feel it." The medical personnel approached Thomas with care. 3 orderlies had been injured during his previous episodes. His physical strength had returned more quickly than his mental stability, making him a potential hazard when combat memories elicited reactions without a clear connection. Dr. Monroe had accepted his case after 2 prior psychiatrists requested transfers. While others perceived a liability, she identified a distressed veteran caught between recollections and a loss of awareness. "Today we are going to attempt a different approach," she stated. Thomas laughed, a sound laced with cynicism. "Another quick fix?" Dr. Monroe responded, "Not at all. An unforeseen package has arrived for you. It seems to be from the past." A disturbance in the East Corridor caused people to notice as a uniformed officer guided a Belgian Malinois through security. The dog's ears stood up suddenly, its eyes fixed on Thomas from 30 yards away. Before the handler could respond, the Malinois pulled forward, drawing the officer a few steps. "Heel," the handler ordered firmly. Something about the command heel made Thomas feel a strange tremor, although he couldn't remember why. As staff gathered around the visitors, he withdrew to his room. Shortly after, Dr. Monroe arrived at his door, carrying a file. "Sergeant Grady," she said, "there's someone who might be of interest to you. A military working dog named Valor. These documents indicate he served as your canine partner for 14 months in Afghanistan." Thomas looked without expression. "I have no recollection of a dog." Dr. Monroe acknowledged, "That's understandable considering your current state, but Valor's handler has records confirming he was your assigned partner during your final deployment." "My partner?" Thomas repeated, the words feeling unfamiliar. "That's impossible. I would remember that. Would you?" Dr. Monroe asked softly. "You don't remember your squad mates or commanding officer?" Before Thomas could answer, a disturbance arose in the hallway. The Malinois had broken free and raced to Thomas's door, ears forward, body vibrating with energy. "Get that thing out of here," Thomas shouted, stepping back. Something about the dog's intense focus made him uneasy. The handler appeared shortly after, offering an apology as he reattached the leash. "I'm sorry, sir. He's never acted like this. Valor is typically very well behaved." "I don't know this animal," Thomas retorted, "and I don't want it close." The dog emitted a low whine, a sound unexpectedly unsettling, given its earlier assertive behavior. His gaze remained fixed on Thomas. "This wasn't part of my agreement," Dr. Monroe clarified. "Your previous superior officer arranged this. He thought that seeing Valor could potentially stimulate memory recall." Thomas looked at the dog, experiencing only annoyance. "It isn't working. Please remove him." As the handler began to take Valor away, the dog hesitated, firmly positioning his paws at the doorway. The resistance wasn't hostile, but resolute. "I will permit Valor to stay for a short time," Dr. Monroe stated. "Not in your room, but in the shared spaces." Thomas turned away, showing indifference. "Do as you please. You always do." As they led Valor away, the dog turned, his gaze lingering on Thomas. A soft whine, laced with a palpable sense of recognition and sorrow, escaped his lips. In the days that followed, staff noticed a peculiar pattern in Valor's behavior. The Malinois consistently positioned himself along Thomas's path, seemingly waiting. During physical therapy, Valor would appear in the hallway, pressed against the glass, his eyes fixed on Thomas. While Thomas was eating in the common area, the dog would position himself exactly 12 feet away, near enough to watch, but at a distance that caused Thomas discomfort. "He's acting like he's conducting surveillance," commented Jim, an orderly with a background in the Marines. "That's a tactical placement." On the fourth night, security cameras recorded Valor entering the supply closet where Thomas kept his personal belongings. The dog removed his combat boots and brought them to his door, setting them carefully at the threshold. Thomas found the boots the following morning. Instead of his typical anger regarding unwanted entries, he paused, observing them before storing them in his closet, a change from how he had handled previous items. The subsequent night, Valor brought forward another item, a set of dog tags. These, too, were positioned at Thomas's door with thoughtful placement. During therapy sessions, Valor remained outside Dr. Monroe's office. During challenging periods when Thomas's frustration grew close to violence, the dog would scratch at the door until someone opened it, then position himself between Thomas and the doctor, not aggressively but protectively. "He's not threatening," Dr. Monroe observed. "He's intervening, attempting to calm Thomas." Particularly insightful were unguarded moments. Surveillance footage showed Thomas watching Valor from his window. Personnel observed him possessing the dog tags Valor had provided, a personal link he was unwilling to admit. By the second week, the equilibrium between Thomas's opposition and Valor's continued efforts started to weaken. The critical moment occurred during a group therapy session Thomas had hesitantly participated in. 5 veterans were sharing experiences about their returns from war. When another veteran recounted losing his closest friend, it sparked a sudden, intense flashback in Thomas. "Get down!" Thomas yelled, tackling the Vietnam-era veteran across from him. "Sniper on the ridge. Get down or you're dead." Chaos erupted as Thomas, lost in a combat scenario, dragged the terrified man toward perceived cover. Staff attempted restraint, but Thomas's combat training made him formidable, even confused. Somehow, Valor pushed his way through 2 doors and rushed into the room. Instead of attacking, he positioned himself between Thomas and the staff. The dog leaned against Thomas's legs, then made a circle around him before settling directly in front of him, its eyes fixed on his face. The impact was instant. Thomas stilled, his anger giving way to bewilderment. Then, a sudden realization as he dropped to his knees. What is going on?" he whispered, looking around as if he were seeing the room for the very first time. The link was short-lived. As personnel attended to his victim, Thomas's confusion shifted to fury. Not directed at the veteran, but at Valor. "What in the world is this, huh?" he shouted, scrambling backward. Was this some kind of trick? Using animals to manipulate him? The incident led to an emergency staff meeting. Thomas had barricaded himself in his room, refusing meals and medication. "This dog is triggering severe reactions," the facility director argued. "We have other patients to consider." After debate, a compromise was reached. Valor would have 48 hours before being returned to the military program. The following morning, Thomas was in the garden, experiencing disjointed memories. He didn't realize Valor was near until the dog positioned itself directly in front of him. "Go away," Thomas snapped, I asked them to keep you away. Valor remained still, amber eyes focused intently on Thomas's face. Thomas stood up quickly. I said, go back. I don't recognize you. He began to walk away, but lost his balance as another memory surfaced. The village again. This time, a chemical smell was present beneath the dust. The sudden dizziness caused him to drop to one knee. When his sight returned, Valor was still present, resolute. What do you want? Thomas asked, his voice trembling. He pushed the dog with both hands. Valor endured the force, remaining unmoved. A quiet whine escaped, not of suffering, but of resolve. Get away, Thomas yelled, retreating rapidly. I don't know you. I don't remember you. His back struck the garden wall. Thomas slumped down, drawing his knees to his chest protectively. The weight of his circumstances overwhelmed him. A man without memory, his identity solely defined by the accounts of others. He existed between fleeting recollections and a vacant present. Just leave me alone, he murmured. The expected respite didn't arrive. Instead, Valor approached with measured composure. The Malinois made a single rotation, then settled with a controlled, ritualistic gesture. He extended himself before Thomas, resting his head directly on the toe of his boot in a defined posture, chin lowered, ears pricked, eyes positioned to meet Thomas's gaze when lifted. Thomas remained perfectly still. The particular angle of Valor's head, the weight on his boot, triggered a surge of recognition. The garden seemed to waver, superimposed with a different image. Dusty terrain, tactical equipment, night vision, and this very same pressure against his boot. Wait, the stance. Thomas spoke, the words coming naturally. Hold position. Valor's ears moved forward at the instruction, becoming even more still. Thomas looked at the dog, his heart pounding as pieces began to fit together. I know this. I know you. The orderly radioed softly for Dr. Monroe, understanding something important was occurring. With shaking fingers, Thomas reached out, pausing just above Valor's head. Upon making contact, Valor emitted a sound of such palpable relief, it was almost like a human expression. We trained together, Thomas stated, and memories began to coalesce for the first time since his injury. North Carolina, you were just a year old. You failed the standard program because you wouldn't leave my side during separation tests. Each word contributed to a clearer picture. Thomas gently scratched behind Valor's ear, precisely where the dog enjoyed it. A movement his body recalled instinctively. You slept at the foot of my bunk, Thomas said, his voice softening, radiating certainty and familiarity. Against regulations. Sanders protected us because you consistently reported his concealed whiskey supply. Dr. Monroe observed from the garden entrance, directing staff to maintain a distance. Thomas's fingers located a notch in Valor's left ear, a mended split almost imperceptible beneath the fur. A sniper round came too close in Cunard province. Should have heeded the alert sooner. Valor pressed his head more firmly against Thomas's hand, reinforcing the connection. I used to tell the guys you were smarter than half the lieutenants. Thomas's fingers traced along Valor's neck, finding an old scar beneath the fur. You took shrapnel intended for me outside Kandahar. Dr. Monroe approached cautiously. Thomas, you're remembering. He looked up, his eyes clearer than she had ever seen. Not everything, just him. Valor. The name felt correct now. We worked together. He was my responsibility and I was his. Your commanding officer believed your connection might break through the amnesia, Dr. Monroe explained. Memory is complex. Sometimes emotional connections access pathways logical thinking cannot reach. Thomas nodded, his hand never leaving Valor's fur. The details of the incident, the cause of the injury, and the reason for the separation remain unclear. However, this represents a significant improvement, Thomas stated gently, observing Valor's unwavering gaze. He never forgot, Thomas said softly, meeting Valor's steady gaze. Even when I did. Valor adjusted their posture, rising to sit upright next to Thomas instead of facing him, transitioning from a defensive stance to the collaborative positioning they had consistently used throughout numerous missions. Thomas refined his posture, his hand resting on Valor's back with comfortable familiarity. I need to recall more, he stated, his voice filled with renewed resolve. I must understand what transpired with us. In the days that followed, Thomas and Valor remained constantly together. Each hour yielded fresh recollections, as the dog's presence seemed to release long-blocked memories. We were deployed together 3 times, Thomas recounted to Dr. Monroe during a therapy session. The first deployment was a standard patrol and explosive detection mission. The second time, their duties changed to direct action assignments, a result of their effective teamwork. Village clearance operations were a primary focus. Valor was capable of detecting not only explosives but also concealed individuals and weapon storage areas. He had a distinct method of signaling for various dangers. 1 ear twitch indicated explosives, 2 signaled hidden personnel. He saved our unit on numerous occasions. Dr. Monroe observed that Thomas's speech patterns had changed. He displayed increased confidence, utilizing military terminology precisely, and a soldier's rhythm returning to his voice. Thomas acknowledged, "Having him here connects me to who I was. I still have gaps." Significant recollections emerged, prompted by specific cues. The framework provided context. Certain actions by Valor triggered related memories. For example, when the dog pressed his nose against Thomas's knee, Thomas remembered their established communication system. When Valor brought a tennis ball, Thomas recalled playing fetch behind their barracks after missions. Michaels, Thomas stated abruptly during a walk through the facility, Specialist Kevin Michaels, our unit's communication expert. I consistently kept butterscotch candies for Valor, even though I cautioned him against giving my dog sweets. By evening, Thomas began constructing a timeline, recording names and events upon our return. He included Jenkins, Rodriguez, and Patel. Captain Ellis led our unit. Lieutenant Cooper served as our immediate commanding officer. He was a good man, willing to listen when others might have asserted authority. When reflecting on a mission where a team member was lost, Thomas appeared visibly upset. Valor rested his head on Thomas's knee, a gesture that steadied him and kept the memory from escalating into a full-blown flashback. The last mission, Thomas began, his voice low, a mountain village close to the Pakistan border. A high-value target was using it as a waypoint. He struggled to break through the mental wall he's built to protect himself from reliving those events. I recall the approach, the village's layout, the teams splitting up. Valor and I secured the eastern buildings. Valor's ears perked up, his body stiffening as if recalling the same event. There was an ambush, Thomas recounted. It wasn't arbitrary, they were anticipating our arrival. The coordination was exceptional. Someone had compromised our operation. His breathing accelerated. Gunfire erupted from numerous locations. Radio communications were disrupted. Men were injured. We were trapped in a courtyard enclosed by buildings. Thomas's hand gripped Valor's fur.
Valor signal.
Not concerning enemy fire, we knew their locations. Something different. He continued attempting to obstruct my way, issuing the explosive signal, but he denied it with a head shake. That's where the memory breaks apart once more. I recall his warning. Then, only noise, pressure, and darkness. That's sufficient for today, Dr. Monroe stated kindly. You've achieved significant advancement. The key moment occurred when a delivery truck backfired in the parking lot. The sound reverberated through the recreation room where Thomas was playing chess. He crouched, pulling the other veteran down, scanning for threats. "AD!" he shouted, completely consumed by memory. This time, the memory played out with perfect clarity. We had cleared 2 buildings, Thomas explained later. Valor pressed against his side. Michaels and Cooper were pinned down. Ellis was coordinating extraction. Valor and I were moving to provide support when heavy fire erupted. His hand instinctively went to a scar on his arm. We reached the stone wall, and that's when the situation changed. Thomas explained that Valor's behavior altered, moving from measured alerts to frantic efforts to prevent our progress. He repeatedly issued the explosive warning, but I wasn't detecting the expected triggers. There was no disturbed earth, no visible wires. His voice tightened. I initially believed he was disoriented by the gunfire. I instructed him to advance twice, and twice he declined a behavior he had never exhibited before. Valor emitted a soft whine, seemingly recalling the event. Rodriguez was in distress, requesting assistance. I issued the instruction, authorizing movement, disregarding Valor's caution. Thomas momentarily closed his eyes. I directed him to provide healing, employing the command that bypasses his safety protocols. During the process, Valor violated procedure entirely. He attacked me, clamping onto my tactical vest, attempting to pull me back. I felt a surge of anger, believing his training had failed. I instructed him to release his grip and resume his task. Thomas's voice lowered. He complied with that final instruction. However, his posture indicated a problem. His ears were flattened, his tail tucked, and he moved as if he were being forced toward execution. 10 meters from Rodriguez, Valor abruptly surged forward, emitting his most urgent bark. That's when I noticed it. Almost invisible wires connected to a pressure plate located beneath Rodriguez. The IED wasn't intended for a single soldier, but for any responding team. Rodriguez had activated the initial sensor, but his weight was insufficient. Any additional weight would trigger the explosion. Valor had known all along. He moved forward, attempting to disarm the trigger, because I wasn't paying attention. I finally grasped the situation and began calling for assistance. I had just activated my radio when the explosion resulted in Rodriguez's immediate death, critically wounded Thomas, and physically distanced him from Valor. My final recollection prior to Walter Reed was Valor standing watch over me, suffering from shrapnel wounds, securing the area while I was unable to move. Thomas looked at the dog, his expression filled with years of emotion. I failed him. He provided every warning, and I disregarded them. You didn't fail him, Dr. Monroe said gently. You made a judgment call that they're trying to save your teammate, and Valor never gave up on you. That's why I couldn't remember, Thomas realized. My last thought was that I'd killed Rodriguez and endangered everyone by ignoring Valor. The mind protects us from what we can't process, Dr. Monroe explained. Thomas nodded, hand resting on Valor's back. I'm ready now. The following weeks brought a remarkable transformation. Thomas's memories resurfaced in a controlled manner as a significant obstacle dissolved. While Thomas regained his strength, Valor started briefly engaging with other struggling veterans, placing himself close to them before returning to Thomas. He has always possessed the ability to perceive when someone is in distress, Thomas noted. This quality distinguished him, allowing him to understand people better than they understood themselves. The morning of Thomas's discharge dawned with autumn sunlight streaming through golden leaves. His belongings were carefully packed: clothes, medications, a journal, and letters from former unit members. Valor observed the packing, remaining alert but composed. His military vest had been returned, accompanied by retirement documents should Thomas choose that option. Dr. Monroe knocked on the door, asking, "Everything ready?" Thomas nodded, securing his duffel bag. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Your sister has confirmed she will meet you?" "Yes, it still feels strange. Reconnecting with family I barely knew months ago." "Have you decided about Valor?" Thomas's expression became thoughtful. "I'd like to discuss this one last time," he said. They walked to the garden, the site of their breakthrough, with Valor accompanying them. "I've observed how Valor interacts with other veterans," Thomas began. "It's not solely with me that he finds connection. It's with anyone experiencing the darkness I once knew," Dr. Monroe affirmed. "His support for patients in crisis has been extraordinary. That's what distinguished him in combat," Thomas clarified. "Typically, military dogs are trained to identify particular dangers. Valor consistently recognized when something was amiss even before we possessed confirming data. He perceived changes in human actions that even seasoned soldiers failed to notice." Thomas stroked Valor's back. "I always believed our bond distinguished him," he said. "Now I realize it's inherent to him, this capacity to perceive distress." Dr. Monroe observed, "You're contemplating leaving him here?" Thomas affirmed, "A part of me wants to bring him back with me. He's more than just a dog. He was the one who found me when I was lost." Valor leaned against Thomas's leg, seemingly to show understanding. "However, I often think about others, still trapped where I once was. Veterans with no means of return. Thomas's voice grew strained. Valor discovered a route when others could not. How many others might he be able to assist? We've considered developing a therapy program based on your experience, Dr. Monroe stated. He won't simply be involved in it, Thomas emphasized. He would be central to it, a guide for healing through bonds we don't completely understand. Ultimately, Thomas knelt before Valor, looking him directly in the face. You have consistently understood your purpose better than anyone, he said gently, holding the dog's face with his hands. In Afghanistan, in this place, you have never forgotten what is important. Valor's focus was complete, his attention unwavering. My time of service is over, Thomas continued steadily. But yours is just beginning. Others need you now as I needed you. Those who are lost and uncertain of their return. Thomas touched his forehead to Valor's. You will guide them as you guided me. And once that task is done, I will be waiting. Thomas rose, regaining composure with military precision. Dr. Monroe will care for you. I will visit. This isn't farewell. The simply new assignments. He squared his shoulders. Valor, remain, he requested softly. A flicker of conflict briefly appeared in the dog's posture, a clash between instinct and years of training related to warring. Then Valor composed himself into a flawless sit, holding steady eye contact. Thomas acknowledged him with a single nod, a gesture of respect between peers, not master and dog. He then turned and departed, each stride demanding significant control. He made no backward glances. I'm out. Valor remained in a seated, attentive position, observing his partner's departure. Only after Thomas disappeared did the dog turn to Dr. Monroe, a silent understanding passing between them. While one mission had ended, another was beginning. Have you ever witnessed the extraordinary bond between a service animal and their human partner? The way they seem to communicate without words, understanding needs that go beyond basic commands. Valor and Thomas's story serves as a reminder that healing can originate from unforeseen places, and that profound bonds can endure even amidst memory loss. Considering Thomas's circumstances, one must wonder, would you possess the fortitude to part with a devoted companion, understanding their potential to guide others out of hardship, mirroring the support they offered you? If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more extraordinary tales of service dogs and the lives they transform. Click the notification bell so you never miss our new uploads. Share this video with friends and family who appreciate the remarkable bond between humans and their canine companions. Be sure to check out our other canine hero stories now on screen, including the incredible story of a search and rescue dog who found a lost child during the worst blizzard in decades. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, with another brand new video. The tracking dog abruptly halted at the forest's boundary, his fur bristling and a low growl emanating from his chest. Shadow, what is it? Sergeant Morgan inquired, securing her hold on the leash. Shortly after, they located the old house situated deep within the woods, a place where no house ought to exist, but what they found inside instilled a chilling dread. What precisely did they unearth in that neglected location? Please subscribe and leave a comment below, letting us know your location. Let's get started. Kate Morgan was loading equipment into her department SUV as dawn approached. She watched with concern as Shadow, her Belgian Malinois partner, paced anxiously beside the vehicle. Usually the dog would wait calmly during preparations, but today his strong body stayed rigid, shifting between gentle movements and focused looks at the nearby forest. At 34, Sergeant Morgan had become Pinewood County's leading search expert. Shadow, possessing his advanced certification and abilities in tracking and cadaver detection, had made them the department's preferred team for missing persons cases. The call had arrived after midnight. Jason Reeves, age 27, was missing after failing to return from his day hike on Blackwater Ridge Trail. The first search team found no sign of him in the darkness. Sheriff Donovan arrived with the rest of the team, his face showing worry. Morning, Kate. The weather report indicates rain by afternoon. We have roughly 6 hours before conditions worsen. Kate nodded, making sure her equipment was secure. We'll find him. Donovan observed the dog's agitated state. "What's got Shadow so worked up?" he asked. "I'm not sure," she replied. "He has been like this since they arrived." She scratched behind Shadow's ears. "Focus up, partner." But as the team gathered for briefing, Kate couldn't shake the feeling that Shadow's agitation wasn't merely pre-search excitement. In their 3 years together, she learned to read his signals, and this behavior felt different, almost like a warning. Blackwater Ridge stretched across the northeastern corner of Pinewood County like a jagged spine. Dense forests climbing into mist-shrouded peaks. The search team gathered at the trailhead, where Jason Reeves's blue Subaru was parked. Kate swiftly organized the team while unloading Shadow. Deputy Torres and Chun would take the South Fork. Harrison and Lopez were to check the ravine. The sheriff and I would follow Shadow on the main trail. Kate presented Shadow with Jason's navy fleece from a sealed bag. The Malinois inhaled deeply, transitioning to work mode, though Kate observed the remaining tension in his posture. She firmly instructed, securing his tracking lead. After 20 minutes near a small footbridge, Shadow abruptly halted, his body becoming rigid as he analyzed the air instead of the ground. "What's he on to?" Donovan inquired. Rather than proceeding across the bridge, Shadow abruptly turned to the right, drawing Kate towards an embankment. 50 yards away was a forest green backpack, swiftly recognized as Jason's, containing his wallet and phone. The trail continued in that direction. Donovan indicated along the creek bed, where crushed plants indicated recent activity. Shadow hesitated to proceed, stubbornly pulling toward the apparently untouched forest. "Shadow, find," Kate repeated, attempting to guide him. The Malinois emitted a whine, pulling with unusual force, a behavior Kate had never observed during a search. "Your dog seems disoriented," Deputy Torres commented. "The path is clearly alongside the water." Kate observed Shadow's concentrated gaze. "I'm going with Shadow." A sense of unease settled over him regarding the creek trail. "We should split up," Torres proposed. "No," Kate stated decisively. "If someone is intentionally leading us astray, separating could create a risk." She addressed Donovan. "Sheriff, I request your confidence. 3 years with Shadow indicate we must follow his guidance." Donovan acknowledged. "We will follow the dog." "Torres, please note this location and communicate with the other teams. We will keep in touch via radio." Shadow took the lead as Kate and Donovan advanced further into the forest, moving away from marked trails and into a wilderness seldom visited by recreational hikers. The ground became more challenging the farther they strayed from known paths. Thick pine and old fir trees formed a natural maze, their large trunks limiting visibility to less than 20 yards. "We're traveling northwest now," Donovan observed, consulting his GPS. "There are no recorded trails in this area." This was old-growth forest, untouched by logging. After 30 minutes of consistent hiking, Shadow halted at the foot of a sharp ridge, his ears twitching as he analyzed the scents carried on the breeze. Suddenly, he bolted forward with such momentum that Kate briefly stumbled. "Shadow, easy," she called, reasserting control of the lead. The dog had stopped at a seemingly neglected path, running across the ridge face. "Service road," Donovan stated, bending down to inspect the packed soil hidden by the plants. "An old one, not listed on any maps we have now." As they proceeded down the neglected service road, Kate experienced a rising sense of disquiet. The woods appeared to press in on them, the overhead branches becoming denser until only infrequent beams of light reached the ground. "This section was harvested in the 1920s, Donovan clarified, ending the quiet. Company archives document a minor worker settlement, consisting of impermanent buildings intended to be vacated upon the end of operations. Shadow guided them around a pronounced curve in the aged road and abruptly halted, his posture tense with focus. Kate tracked his line of sight and felt her breathing shorten. Situated within a compact clearing was a 2-story house, its time-worn, clapboard facade darkened by age and moisture. Rather than the crumbling ruin one could anticipate following a century of abandonment, the structure seemed mostly complete, with some sagging areas, dark and empty windows, but fundamentally stable. "That's not a logging camp shack," Kate stated softly. "No," Donovan concurred, his hand moving naturally to his sidearm. "That's someone's homestead, and it shouldn't be here. The house stood before them, its aged exterior showing the marks of many seasons. As she approached, Kate observed details previously hidden from afar. Intricate Victorian-style trim around the eaves, though much of it was decayed, and vestiges of what had undoubtedly been a graceful wraparound porch, now partially collapsed at one corner. "Sheriff's Department," she announced. "We are conducting a search for a missing hiker. Anyone inside, please identify yourself." Only silence responded. The forest sounds appeared subdued around the property, fostering an unsettling quiet that prickled the skin on Kate's arms. "I'm seeing recent footprints," Donovan observed, indicating clear marks in the yielding ground close to the porch steps. "Multiple sets, some arriving, some departing." Kate bent down to study a well-defined print. "This matches the tread pattern from Jason's hiking boots, based on the girlfriend's description. He was certainly here." Adhering to the established procedures for entering potentially occupied buildings during search operations, Donovan drew his service weapon, maintaining a safe downward-pointing position. He repeated, "Sheriff's Department. We are entering to search the premises." The front door emitted a concerning creak as Donovan pushed it open. The interior was dimly lit, the scant daylight that penetrated through the cloudy, undamaged windows illuminated a foyer characterized by peeling wallpaper and a dust-covered wooden floor. Remarkably, the furniture was still present. A discolored mirror leaned askew on one wall, and a former elegant side table sat beneath it, its surface covered in debris. The air inside was chilly and damp, carrying the stale odor of prolonged desertion combined with something else, something less definable, something more recent. Shadow moved carefully into the foyer, his nose working constantly, head turning to register each room extending from the central space. Deviating from his typical approach, he appeared hesitant to move forward, remaining uncommonly near Kate. "Living room clear," Donovan stated, inspecting the initial doorway on their right. The connected dining room and kitchen also displayed indications of emptiness, although nothing presented an immediate cause for worry, simply decades of dust, dislodged plaster, and the minor remnants left by wildlife seeking refuge. Kate noticed someone had been present, observing the kitchen table's relatively clean spots where dust had been recently moved, and noting an empty modern water bottle in one corner. Their attention then shifted to a door located beneath the main staircase, which is when Shadow's demeanor changed significantly. The Malinois halted suddenly, his body becoming rigid as he focused on the closed door. A low growl emanated from his throat. "Basement access," Donovan stated softly. Kate observed a detail overlooked during their first search. Tiny symbols were etched into the door frame, abstract designs that seemed intentional, not mere random damage. Comparable markings were present on the floor at the threshold, subtle lines scratched into the aged wood. "These are new," she stated, bending down to inspect them, "and they're all around the door, almost as if, like a boundary or a warning," Donovan concluded. Shadow's growl intensified, his gaze firmly fixed on the basement door. Throughout 3 years of searches, building clearances, and tracking operations, Kate had never witnessed her partner exhibit such intense apprehension. Kate encountered Shadow during a difficult period in her career. Following 8 years in military police, including 2 deployments to Afghanistan, she joined the Pinewood County Sheriff's Department, anticipating a less demanding role. Her initial 2 years of service concluded with a tragic, unsuccessful attempt to locate a 4-year-old who had strayed from a campsite. The child's remains were discovered several days later, just half a mile from an area that had already been searched. This experience significantly damaged her self-assurance. Sheriff Donovan encouraged her to focus on growth instead of withdrawing, and he offered her a K-9 unit application. During training, she encountered a lean Belgian Malinois. The dog's evaluation noted high intelligence but difficulty in management, along with exceptional search aptitude and inconsistent responses to commands. The trainer stated that Shadow's intensity made him unsuitable for most handlers. Rescued from abuse at 10 months of age, the previous owner had employed harsh training techniques, essentially torture. Their partnership started with challenges. A significant turning point occurred during a night exercise when Kate fell and sustained a head injury. Instead of returning to base as instructed, Shadow remained with her throughout the night, subsequently leading her along the simplest route back, accommodating her uneven steps. Now, gazing at the basement door with its unusual markings, Kate remembered Fletcher's advice about heeding a dog's instincts even when the reason wasn't clear. Shadow wasn't simply providing an alert, he was conveying a particular message regarding what lay beyond that entrance. "I'm going to trust my partner," she told Donovan, placing her hand reassuringly on Shadow's back. "If he thinks there's something important down there, we need to find out what it is." The basement door resisted initially, then yielded with a groan of protesting hinges. Stale air surged upward, carrying the distinct mineral scent of underground spaces mixed with something less identifiable, a sharp, almost metallic undertone that made Kate's nose wrinkle. Donovan observed a temperature drop as noticeably colder air surrounded them. "Feels like 15 degrees cooler down there," he remarked. A narrow, wooden staircase led down into darkness. Kate turned on her tactical flashlight, the beam illuminating a dirt floor roughly 8 feet below. Shadow remained alert, but didn't show any eagerness to descend. This was unusual for a dog typically keen to lead the way during searches. The basement proved more expansive than Kate anticipated, stretching under the complete area of the house. Stone foundation walls upheld the structure above, with hand-hewn wooden pillars offering extra support at consistent intervals. In contrast to the comparatively undisturbed upper floor, the basement displayed indications of more recent use. "Someone has been using this space," Kate noted, aiming her light beam toward a contemporary camping lantern positioned on a weathered wooden crate. Close by, a sleeping bag was carefully rolled beside a small backpack. "Search team, this is Donovan," the sheriff spoke into his radio. "We've located possible belongings of the missing hiker in an abandoned structure. Request additional units at our GPS coordinates." Only Static answered him. They systematically documented the scene, photographing the items with their phones. The backpack contained energy bars, a first aid kit, and a well-worn trail map of Blackwater Ridge with handwritten annotations. A notebook close at hand contained puzzling notes. The last one was dated the day Jason vanished. "Returning inside today, assuming the stories about this location are accurate, I should possess evidence that cannot be questioned." Shadow, who had been examining the room's boundaries while staying near Kate, abruptly tensed, his focus fixed on the distant wall. Kate instantly understood his stance, the identical alert posture he adopted when locating concealed objects during evidence searches. Shadow informed Donovan, who had been studying markings on a support pillar. The wall that had attracted Shadow's attention seemed unremarkable initially, consisting of roughly hewn stone blocks. However, as Kate drew nearer, her flashlight illuminated slight variations in the mortar arrangement approximately halfway along its length. Working together, they scrutinized the wall section meticulously, ultimately finding a skillfully hidden device, a jutting stone that, when pushed in, disengaged a latch. Accompanied by a soft scraping noise, a portion of the wall, roughly 3 feet in width, swung inward, exposing a narrow passage on the other side. This passage led to a circular room, approximately 15 feet in diameter, with a floor of fitted stone slabs. The walls displayed faded inscriptions, unknown script, and elaborate geometric designs. A stone table, appearing like an altar and bearing a dark stain, was positioned in the center. 7 candles formed a perfect circle around it, 3 of which had recently been lit, showing soft wax. The items placed on the altar were particularly unsettling: a driver's license, watch, and cell phone Kate recognized from the missing person report. These were Jason's belongings, and she documented them with photographs, careful not to move anything. The question remained, where was he? Shadow's anxiety became apparent as he moved around the room. He moved toward the altar, then retreated, conflicted by his investigative training and an intense feeling of reluctance. Kate's flashlight wavered, then noticeably weakened. Donovan's did the same. A subtle hum resonated from the walls, intensifying until Kate felt it vibrating within her. The temperature dropped sharply, their exhaled breath appearing as frosty vapor. Shadow's actions changed significantly. He settled against Kate's legs, forming a protective posture, his gaze directed at an empty corner, his fur bristling. Rather than his usual forceful barking when facing danger, He remained quietly watchful. "We must leave," Kate stated, relying on Shadow's judgment. Immediately, as they moved back, Kate's weakening light revealed one last detail. A recently inscribed name etched into the altar's edge. Beneath those others faded with time, Jason Reeves. Upon exiting the concealed room, Donovan attempted to use his radio, but it only produced the same peculiar static. Kate examined her phone. There was no signal, and the battery had dropped from 85% to 17% during their short time in the basement. A gentle thud from the level above halted them at the foot of the staircase, followed by the clear sound of footsteps on aging, creaking floorboards. "Someone's up there," Kate murmured, drawing her sidearm. The missing hiker could be this person. The main floor seemed unoccupied as they carefully exited the basement. Daylight had faded considerably. Checking her watch, she realized they had been inside for fewer than 40 minutes, but the light suggested late afternoon, not midday. Shadow suddenly became alert, his focus drawn to a small secretary desk in the corner that they hadn't previously inspected closely. The roll top of the desk had been opened, showing a stack of leather-bound journals almost neatly arranged inside. The topmost volume lay open, its pages filled with handwritten text that seemed surprisingly new compared to the old paper. Kate studied the open page, feeling a sudden chill unrelated to the basement's dampness. The writing detailed names and dates of people who've disappeared in these woods. The journal entries originated in 1893 and were written at inconsistent intervals throughout the years. Certain names were accompanied by supplemental information, including ages, occupations, and details regarding disappearances. Kate identified several entries referencing unsolved missing persons cases she had become familiar with after joining the department. Particularly unsettling was the last entry, concerning Jason Reeves, which bore yesterday's date and a specific time. 3:17 p.m. Shadow abruptly growled, turning to confront the doorway. Moments passed, then a significant crash echoed from the upper floor, indicating furniture was being knocked over or displaced. "Sheriff's Department," Donovan announced, approaching the foot of the central staircase. "Identify yourself immediately." Only silence responded, accompanied by another crash, this time directly above them. Plaster dust drifted down from the ceiling. The staircase creaked under their cautious ascent, weapons drawn. The upper hallway split into 4 rooms, the doors showing different levels of damage. Shadow guided them toward the closest entrance, his carefulness apparent in each measured step. The bedroom inside looked untouched initially, featuring a 4-poster bed with a decaying mattress, a wardrobe against one wall, and faded curtains still present at the windows. Then Kate observed the wardrobe doors gradually opening, despite the absence of any breeze or disruption that might cause the movement. Deputy Chen's voice abruptly broke through their radios, startling them both. "Sheriff, come in. We've been trying to reach you for over an hour." Donovan pressed his transmit button. "Chun, we're inside a structure approximately 2 miles northwest of the backpack location. Possible evidence of the missing hiker found. Sir, we can barely read you. Signals breaking up. Do you need assistance?" "Affirmative. Track our GPS coordinates. Approach with caution." Kate went to the window, hoping to spot the approaching search team from afar. However, she stopped, stunned by the scene before her. The area around the house appeared altered. The forest seemed nearer, thicker, the trees leaning inward, as if the woods had somehow moved closer while they were inside. A floorboard groaned behind them, though neither had shifted. Shadow turned toward the noise, positioning himself between Kate and the vacant corner of the room. The temperature plummeted rapidly, their breath visible in the suddenly frigid air. As if to emphasize her statement, a door slammed somewhere down the hallway. Then another. The sound of footsteps, numbering more than one person could manage, reverberated from several directions at once. "We retreated the way we had come," Donovan decided, moving toward the bedroom door, only to discover it was closed, despite neither of them having touched it. Kate grasped the doorknob, finding it intensely cold. The door rotated without obstruction, yet remained unyielding, as if a significant force held it back from the hallway. Donovan proposed examining the window, and immediately moved towards it. The old frame initially resisted his attempt to lift the sash, but then yielded with a scattering of paint chips and debris. A blast of cold rain rushed in, bringing with it the fragrance of damp soil and pine. Shadow's growl intensified, his attention still directed towards the apparently vacant corner of the room. Kate had grown accustomed to relying on her partner's instincts, especially when they sensed threats she couldn't identify. Whatever was in that corner registered as dangerous to the Malinois. Kate secured her sidearm and proceeded cautiously as a forceful impact rattled the bedroom door. The old wood fractured but remained intact. A second impact splintered the frame along one side. The fall to the ground outside was roughly 12 feet, negotiable but potentially hazardous. Kate descended from the sill, using her hands to lower herself and minimize the drop to the muddy earth below. She landed unevenly but sustained no injuries, quickly arranging herself to be in shadow. Donovan raised the Malinois, who appeared remarkably compliant with the handling, reinforcing Kate's sense that the dog detected significant danger within. Shadow permitted himself to be passed through the window, his 65 pounds of muscle momentarily suspended before Donovan released him to Kate below. Another crash originated from inside the bedroom, followed by Donovan's startled shout. Kate looked up to observe the sheriff struggling with the window sash, which had unexpectedly slammed down, nearly trapping his hands. "Something's got it," he called, straining against the seemingly immovable window. Shadow barked sharply, not an alert for danger, but his specific call for Kate's attention. The Malinois was focused on a point at the corner of the house, where weathered clapboards met in a seam that appeared to be separating unnaturally, revealing darkness beyond. "Sheriff, another exit," Kate called up to Donovan. "Meet me at the front of the house." Kate drew her weapon again, using her flashlight to illuminate the darkened passage beyond the open doors. Rough-hewn stone steps descended into darkness. The air rising from below held the same metallic odor they'd noticed in the basement. Shadow seemed to want her to go down, but everything she's felt in the house cautioned against returning. The dog whimpered, scratching at the initial step, his eagerness unmistakable. "Kate," Donovan's voice called from somewhere near the front of the house. "Where are you?" Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from inside the house, the clear sound of a structural failure. Dust puffed out from an upstairs window as a portion of the roof collapsed. Shadow's fur stood on end, a soft growl vibrating in his chest, aimed not at the cellar entrance behind them, but toward the sound of Donovan's voice. A chilling sense of conviction settled in Kate's stomach. "That's not the sheriff," she whispered, completely believing Shadow's judgment. The dog maintained its position, preventing anyone or anything from approaching from around the corner. Kate retreated towards the cellar entrance, keeping her weapon aimed at the side of the building. Shadow followed her, continuing his protective posture. The constricted tunnel stretched roughly 20 feet before leading into what seemed to be a mechanical room, containing antiquated, rusted machinery indicative of a coal furnace system from the house's initial construction. This area, in contrast to the basement they had explored previously, exhibited no indications of recent activity. A door on the distant wall likely linked to the main basement. Kate bypassed it, opting to follow Shadow toward a section of foundation wall that had partially collapsed. The Malinois readily passed through the opening, appearing outside into thick underbrush that had hidden this gap from view. "Sheriff Donovan, come in." Kate tried on her radio, but only received static. She trailed Shadow roughly 50 yards through thick foliage before daring to look back towards the house. Through openings in the trees, she observed its outline. The partially collapsed roof was now releasing smoke despite the heavy rain. Even more unsettling was the movement she noticed at several windows, with shadows moving across them, despite the fact that they had discovered no other people inside. "Kate," the authentic voice of Sheriff Donovan interrupted her focus on the house. He appeared from the trees to her right, soaked and muddied, but seemingly unharmed. "Thank God, I thought you were still inside." Shadow's reaction verified this was truly Donovan. The dog's posture softened, his tail giving a quick wag of recognition. "How did you escape?" Kate inquired, observing a bleeding cut along the sheriff's hairline. "The back staircase gave way while he was on it," he recounted, resulting in him ending up in some kind of root cellar. He found a storm door leading out, and then he paused, seemingly having difficulty expressing his experience. Something was present with him inside, not a person, at least not anymore. Shadow abruptly tensed, his focus returning to the house in the distance. Kate followed his gaze, observing what seemed to be several figures exiting the front door. They were obscured by the rain and fading light, but clearly advancing purposefully toward their position. "We need to go," she stated, her strategic mind rapidly assessing their choices. The primary objective was to extract safely and redirect backup teams away from the house. After 20 minutes of consistent travel, they arrived at the ridge line, offering a view of the valley where the house was situated. From their high vantage point, they observed several flashlight beams in the distance, indicating the search teams were closing in, following their last known coordinates. "We need to stop them before they reach the house," Donovan stated, attempting his radio once more. This time, Deputy Torres responded clearly. "Sheriff, we've been trying to reach you for hours." "Listen carefully," Donovan replied. "Do not approach the structure at these coordinates. I repeat, do not approach. We are maneuvering to block your team's advance from the ridge line north of your current location." Within an hour, they had successfully met up with the search teams and created a security zone half a mile from the house. As full darkness enveloped the forest, the decision was reached to pause operations until morning. The missing hiker, Jason Reeves, was still not found. A flickering light appeared through the trees, not a consistent beam from a flashlight, but the shifting appearance of flames. The house, despite the pouring rain, was now completely consumed by fire, the glow still visible from their location. 1 month later, Kate's office wall showcased an expanding array of photographs, maps, and notes linked by red string, representing her personal inquiry. Jason Reeves remained listed as missing with no new information. The formal search continued for 2 weeks, involving numerous agencies, cadaver dogs, and ground-penetrating radar covering 10 square miles. The search yielded no results, no body was discovered, nor any further evidence besides the peculiar house that had burned completely to its foundation before firefighters arrived. Kate attached a newspaper clipping from 1922 to her board, detailing the destruction of Old Blackwater House in a fire that claimed the lives of 7 members of the Thorne family. The article mentioned local beliefs that the property had been plagued by misfortune since it was built. Her phone rang. "Morgan, this is Torres. Regarding the research you asked for? 16 disappearances have been recorded within a 5-mile radius of Blackwater Ridge, a number 3 times higher than what's typically seen in comparable wilderness areas. Any patterns?" Kate inquired. "The disappearances tend to occur in clusters of 3 or 4 individuals within a few months, followed by years of no further incidents. Has anyone ever been located?" "Only one person. A Forest Service worker was discovered wandering along Highway 16 3 months later in 1978. He had no recollection of his whereabouts and was malnourished, but sustained no other injuries." Following the phone call, Kate added the details to her board while Shadow stood beside her, his gaze fixed on the photograph of the house foundation. "What did you perceive there?" she inquired softly. Shadow immediately growled, his focus directed at the window where darkness now filled the view. Kate observed a fleeting movement in the tree line, the shadows seeming distorted. She swiftly lowered the blinds, spotting a manila envelope on the exterior windowsill, a package that couldn't be reached without a ladder from her second-floor office. A single photograph lay within, showing Jason Reeves positioned in front of the undamaged Blackwater house, his expression unreadable, bearing a timestamp 3 days following their investigation. Written on the reverse in elegant handwriting was the phrase, "The house always returns. So do we." Shadow brushed against her legs as a shiver traced its way down her spine. Outside, limbs scraped against the structure, sounding like searching fingers. For the first time in her professional life, Kate wished that certain enigmas would remain beyond resolution. Have you ever observed your pet responding to something imperceptible that prompted a feeling of unease? Animals demonstrate senses extending beyond human capabilities. They perceive frequencies beyond our hearing range, scent traces too subtle for us to notice, and possibly energies that science has yet to explain. What could your dog or cat be perceiving when they abruptly pause, focusing intensely on a vacant area of your home. Do you consider that some locations retain echoes of previous occurrences that certain perceptive animals are able to detect? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments section. We are eager to read your stories. If this puzzling cold case gave you chills, remember to click the subscribe button and enable notifications to stay updated with our regular uploads about remarkable dog stories. Give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more unsolved mysteries, and share it with those who value the unique capabilities of our canine friends. Be sure to view our additional unexplained canine encounters currently displaying. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, with another brand new video that explores the remarkable world of working dogs and the mysteries they help us uncover.